All right, y'all. Welcome to T Voice Swag. Sorry about my voice, and if there's any outside audio, I'm recording in a suboptimal location, aka my living room, and they're playing music outside. And then I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I have been sick. Not COVID, thank God. I just had a cold. It happens every school year. I just at the beginning of the year I gotta get sick, and then I'm over it. But welcome to episode 3 of T Boy Swag. Apologies again for that weird little skip we had last week. That was out of my control. It was kind of UCLA radio's thing. I don't know what happened there, but at least I think it got aired. Let me know, or I'm gonna start throwing allegations at UCLA Radio. Ha! I'm kidding. I'm kidding. To the manager listening to this, you're fine for now. Um, anyways, I have some updates. So, I mentioned previously before that I am working on a tit zine for that's just a collection of my pre-top surgery photos that I put into a book. And it looks like a tabloid, confidential style magazine. Well, we're in the final stages of figuring stuff out for printing, and hopefully they will be tangible objects soon. So watch out. I'll be posting about it. You'll see. I'm really looking forward to it. It's been a lot of work getting it to get put together, but it'll probably be like $5 to $10 cost. I don't know. We'll see. I'm also looking into making pins of my boobs, like the boob pics, but in pin form. And some other fun little items. Maybe T-Boy Swag merch? Question mark? Who knows? This is what happens when you have a job and get paid to do things. Because now I have some free money, and it's a little dangerous. Will not lie. Ugh. So, anyways, today we are talking about comics and transness. And specifically, when I talk about comic books, I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be biased. I mainly have read DC comics. I'm a DC comic, and then my one Marvel thing is maybe X-Men and Fantastic Four. That's all I know about Marvel is Fantastic Four and X-Men, but I am a DC comics biased bitch. So if you like Marvel, I mean, good for you, but this isn't the show. I mean, I would say Marvel comics are the most cis, but even when they're queer, they're in that Ravo capitalism way. I don't find them particularly engaging. That's my controversial opinion. Marvel is for normcore. It's for cishet. It's for cis people. DC is for sexy transsexuals. Just saying. Just because I haven't really been engaged with Marvel. There's more interesting stuff in DC. Especially DC Vertigo. But for me, at least, my personal connection to comics is that I kind of really grew up on comics. A lot of my family friends, they really loved Sandman, Watchmen, all of the Vertigo higher form given the graphic novels of Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman and sometimes Grant Morrison too of well written really well written comics. And I personally, before I'm currently a film major, I want to go into video games and stuff, but before everything, I really wanted to go into comics. And still, even when I'm creating stuff today of writing for doing screenwriting or whatever, I'm not imagining it as a movie. I'm imagining it as a comic book, because to me, I love comic books. I could sit there all reading comic books all day. I love graphic novels. I love everything about comics. And if you ever want to talk with me about comics, fucking let me know. I will not shut up. I'm an annoying neurodivergent person. I'll fucking not shut up. Oh, that was a moist one. That was a moist call. But at least for today, for me, my personal connections, the first time I really kind of experienced it. Everybody talks about oh, the first trans character I knew was from Glee or the L Word or something like that. For me, my first trans character was Wanda from Sandman. And she's kind of a controversial character. Her story hasn't aged well. Essentially, Wanda is from this arc called Game of You, and basically she lives with a character named Barbie. Yes, her name is Barbie. She's blonde. She's great. I love Barbie. But she's a trans woman that lives with her, and basically, like, it's hard to explain, but like a series of events. This kind of wizard who's like an allegorical turf. Like she's a basically based off of Diana Wiccans in the like 90s who were like lesbians that like were pagan witches towards Diana, or like just feminists that were like pagan witches towards Diana as their source of power, and like Diana being like a female focused, and like basically the concept of female being very quote unquote like female in a biological sense. So trans women are not included in that. And Wanda's character is kind of tragic. She's kind of falls into a case of like bury your gays or kill trans, like the trans femme that dies tragically, and her whole character is about her death. But I don't know. For me, I really loved Wanda's story, and it really meant a lot to me as a young trans person. It's the first interaction I had with trans people, and even reading or thinking about that comic today makes me really sad. I don't know. All of Sandman is really trans. Like there's Desire, who's very like gender fluid, non-binary. They also kind of suck in the comic books. Like they basically rape Unity Kincaid and stuff. So it's not really as like regular as it is now. As as isn't as like not regular as what is it called, friendly, like a politically correct. But the stories were still like super fucking good. And Wanda, basically at the end of the story takes place with like kind of her getting buried, but her family doesn't really accept her at all. And also with Wanda, she was, I believe, like in the story, she has like taken hormones. Like she's medically transitioned to an extent. She's like been on HRT, but I think like there's like a part of her story that's like talking about how she's like hasn't had the surgery, but is also like not wanting to have the surgery, more out of fear of surgery than anything else, which is really interesting. To see like representation of trans people existing out of like as a critique of normative ways we view transitioning. Oh, she's still a trans woman and she's still a woman despite not having the quote unquote surgery. Like she's still herself, and in Death, she's like she has the appearance of all she ever wanted to be. She's more feminized and whatever in Death, and basically like Barbie goes to her grave and then writes, like, instead of her dead name, which her parents put on her grave, she writes Wanda in like pink lipstick, in her favorite lipstick shade, on her gravestone. And it's so beautiful. I'd recommend reading Sandman if you ever get a chance. This is Game of You, and it's really fucking good. So that was my first introduction to trans characters. Like that was my first trans person I ever knew, was Wanda from Sandman. And I'm really curious what they're going to do in the show with it, like, to be honest, because like I love the Sandman show pretty much. Like it's pretty good. It's not as accurate as I would have wanted to, but then again, I'm like a freak that like the two thoughts in my head at all times are like Sandman and then Red Dwarf, pretty much. Like those are the two pieces of media that consume my being all the time. Like at all times I can just break out into talking about this shit. But like this show was really just beautiful, seeing everything put into motion, put into visuals. And I think like when they adapt Wanda's story in the Game of You in the next season, I'm gonna be prepared to be sick of me. I'm gonna be so annoying. I'm gonna be so crying. I'm gonna be so weepy. I'm gonna be so gross, just snot-nosed and whatever. Because like reading it now, like when I reread those parts of Sandman now, I still tear up so much. And then I guess the other trans character that's really important to me is Rebus from Doom Patrol. So Doom Patrol, like you might have seen it, it was also adapted into a show, which is so much is getting adapted into TV shows, to be honest. And Rebus is like basically, like in Doom Patrol's about this group of like superpowered individuals who got their superpowers normally through like some sort of accident or misfortune, and they're all really traumatized, and they're a superhero, quote unquote superhero team, but they're all really damaged people that don't want to be heroes. Basically, it's like kind of the concept of like if the Fantastic Four actually had lasting trauma from their experiences with the accident, if that makes sense. There's a lot of really interesting characters. Like there's sorry, I'm taking a sip of Gatorade. There's some really interesting characters. Like there is Cliff Steele, who's Robot Man. Basically, he's like a NASCAR driver that like got like killed, and they put his brain in a robot, and now he has like phantom sensations all over his body, and he's such a trans character um in and of himself, because he doesn't really consider himself human anymore, and he has like like in the book he like grappled with his own identity of being in a body that does not reflect the one he knows he should have, which is super fucking trans. But I love Cliff. There's like this other character like Jane, Crazy Jane, and she has like powers and like dissociative identity disorder. It's not really as well written, but like not the greatest DID rep, but you know what? It's not as bad as it could be. And then there's a character who mainly is like called Negative Man or Larry Trainer, and he's basically like a pilot that like got infused with a negative spirit while on a plane, like a test flight, like ride on a aircraft, and crashed, and now has to wear bandages because of like radiation. Like keeps his radiation from going everywhere, and he's just burning badly scarred, and his superpower is this spirit inside of him. But Rebus is basically like Larry Trainer. If basically what happens is Larry Trainer and this doctor who's taking care of him, who is a black woman, get fused together with the negative spirit. So Rebus is essentially like mixed, intersex, and like three people at once. And it's not like, oh, this part of me is telling this to you. They're completely fused together. There is no beginning and end of who's who. Z's a really great character, and Z's been my gender forever. I used her pronouns for a while because of they use those pronouns. They're just insanely gender, and I fucking love their look. Yeah, I don't know. I fucking love them, and they're like ideally what I want to look like. They like there's this part of it where they're just in bandages, like full body, like I think Invisible Man with bandages, right? And then they have like a bra and briefs on, and then pearls, and then glasses, and that's the whole fit. And their titties are out, and like their briefs, like they've got a dick in it, and like I want to look like that. Like, I want that. I should have done that as a costume before I had top surgery. Or, like, postponed my top surgery so I could have done it as a costume, because I would have fucking loved it. There's still time, though. Maybe not this year, because this year I'm doing Dave, like, Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid, but maybe next year I'll be Rebus. Gosh, that cough is reminding me why we're talking about it this week. So, weird shit happens when you're sick, right? Like, you don't feel well, you sleep weird, you have weird dreams. It's like a fever dream, right? I woke up on Saturday feeling like shit, but also thinking about Harvey Dent. Like, I just woke up thinking of him. I was like, Harvey, and I went up, like immediately went on my phone and was just looking through different things online about Harvey Dent, and I don't know why, and I still haven't articulated it. And this episode is going to be how I try to articulate it, I think, because I have no clue how to articulate it, but I think this whole episode we're going to be trying to articulate it. So that's who I am, why we're talking about this, some really big side tangents because I am very ADHD. But here, listen to some music.
Conductor says, take a break, driver age.
Okay, so welcome back. Now we're going to be talking about like what I've written is trans characters in comics because I'm not a historian, but I know a lot about comics. I read way too many comics. So I want to talk about some cool canonically trans characters in comics, and specifically, like I've already mentioned two. There's Wanda in Sandman, there's Rebus in Doom Patrol, and then even in Sandman, there's Desire, and Desire's super trans and very non-binary, but I want to talk about some like lesser known ones that I think are really cool. And one of them, again, this is with a DC bias because I don't know when Marvel started doing canonically trans characters. Um, so I guess the first like trans superhero is technically Coagula, I think, who is this character that appears in, if I recall correctly, Doom Patrol. Yeah, she comes from Doom Patrol, and basically she's a trans. She's the first trans superhero by DC, and she's like this trans lesbian who like was like a former prostitute and programmer, and then she has a hookup with Rebus, which T for T superiority, and like she gains powers because of like the radiation that comes from her, um and basically she just is able to like dissolve things and like coagulate them in like hence the name Coagula. And like there's a whole part of her story where she's like basically like told like, oh, like I want to join the Justice League, and then she's like they reject her because she's openly trans and like a fucking activist and shit. um and her entire being is one of like the most like underrated aspects of comics, and I believe she was written by a trans comic writer, or like was a queer comic writer. Um, and I think let me look it up. I'm looking it up. Sorry, it doesn't really say on her wiki if she's trans or not, but she's like really, I guess like yeah, she's a trans woman. Oh my god, yeah. She's now I'm reading her. She's fucking dope. She's Jewish too, and has written about the Kabbalah a lot. Um, I don't know. I'm actually obsessed with this woman. Her name is Rachel Pollack, and I'm reading about her, and holy fucking shit. In one of her books, it looks like it's just like a secret woman reaches a police together who's police detective who is trans and Jewish. The detective utters the prayer, "Blessed art thou God, who made me not a woman. Double blessed is Dr. Green who has." Holy fuck. This is so fucking good. She's also the reason that like we have like the bandage people in Doom Patrol. Okay. She won. She's better than all of us, I think. Um, but I feel like there's been like a really long history of like trans people in comics, and like especially trans representations in comics, because I feel like comics are one of those things that get like misconstrued a lot. I think like we expect the audience for comic books to be the cis male, like overarching like majority of like these stinky guys who live in basements and read comics and jerk off to like Wonder Woman, but there's like so many queer people and especially trans people that really love comics. I've found so much impactful community through comics, and like for like I know like a lot of trans fans, like I've like a lot of like characters like Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, and like other almost high femme characters have been like super important to their gender like journey. And then for like as like a trans guy and like in a trans mask sense, for me like the like openly trans characters in their more avant-garde comics, they're more like transgressive comic books like Doom Patrol or Sandman. I guess like I feel like it's an underspoken history because like so much of like comics have been dominated by cis men. But like even by some writers, and especially those like transgressive writers that tried to make comic book writing an actual like writing form and like a legitimate way of telling stories, like have used trans characters in their stories like a ton. Like Alan Moore has had so many explicitly trans characters in his stories, or has tried to. Like, I think it's like Camelot 3000, there's like a trans character. Basically, like Sir Tristan gets like was like a guy and had like it's like about Tristan and Isolde, and like Tristan gets like transformed into a woman and like continues the rest of the story as a woman and with her wife, you know, she's she's still Tristan, she's Lady Tristan, but she's like trans, not in like a explicit way, but in an implicit way, I guess. And then fucking like in V for Vendetta, I feel like V for Vendetta is like the most underspoken one, because like V for Vendetta originally V was supposed to be a trans woman, but then DC stopped Alan Moore, and a lot of people have looked at like, oh, V is Valerie, like trans of Mask, V in V for Vendetta. But the thing is, like, it was like they were supposed to be trans femme. Like, I think like it's more like in a way you can almost view like you need to view it the opposite way of Valerie was real, but like Valerie was like almost like a gender dream for like V, I guess. Like someone to project on, like, I want to be like that. I want to emulate that as like a trans affirmation of gender, I guess. But that's my reading. People who view V as a trans mask are cool. I mean, whatever. It's a free country, but like, she's trans. V is trans femme. No ifs, ands, or buts. That was the original intention. I think it's really interesting because, like, even if you look at like Alan Moore, it's like he's some cis guy who like looks like a little bit of a wizard. He's fucking ugly. Sorry, Alan, but yeah. Yeah, like maybe like their representation may not have been in like the most accurate trans affirming way. It wasn't trans people telling trans stories, but it was still like really impactful for people, and like very like the writing of it is still has a nuance and a meaning to it. And I think like even with people like Rachel Pollack, who now I'm obsessed with, I want to read the rest of her stuff because she did Doom Patrol. She had her own run of issues for Doom Patrol, because she sent like a letter to like an editor, like as like a Gee Whiz fangirl, and like just kind of ended up getting a job from it, which is so fucking cool. Honestly, like, Pollock, are you still? Yeah, she's still alive. She's. Please come. Please join us on T-Boy Swag. Please, 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 please. Anyways, it's really like there's still spaces, and especially in like with Vertigo, like it looks like Pollock mainly wrote for Vertigo. Like had like a space that was like not as restricted as like mainstream DC, where like it was all, oh, it needs to be like Justice League, Superman, Batman, like it needs to be edgy but in a cis guy way, and like boys need to love this stuff. Vertigo was able to do more, and that's why I honestly prefer DC over Marvel, because Marvel really never had that edge to it. Marvel was nice and cute, but it never said anything about society, unless you go back to like original Marvel. But like contemporaneous, it felt, at least in a postmodern sense, it felt rather dated. It has like an Americana, and like it's also the ownership of it kind of reflects that, I would say. I'm not shitting on Disney here. I would never do that. I would never shit on Disney. But if I were to, it would be in this moment to talk about Marvel as kind of like Americana in a weird way. I was reading this thing the other day about basically like a lot of people got really pissed about it, of Alan Moore talking about how comic book movies and comic book adaptations perpetuate or like and the liking of them by adults is something of like a like signs of fascist sympathy. And a lot of people got really pissed at it because they're basically calling, like, he's kind of calling like Marvel fans like fascists to a degree. But he's onto something, because I think there's like in a lot of in a lot of media that's like adaptations of comic books, especially in the Marvel context, there's a certain Americana they're trying to capture that is, even when they're trying to diversify it, it's still a very pure, very, oh, let's go back to the good old days type of Americana. And I really understand what and also the erasure of its historical context. I think, for instance, like WandaVision's a great example of this. Like, WandaVision becomes more of a story, like WandaVision, the show, harkens back to Americana, especially like 50s television, which is very like nuclear family, like white American hegemony. And it kind of like critiques the sense of family in that context, but it's still reinforcing that she wants this white, purebred American family. The issue with this is that Wanda as a character is like both Romani and Jewish, and they make no reference to it in any of like Wanda's material in any of the DCU, not in DCU, MCU. In the MCU, but also like in her casting. Like, she's, I don't know who Elizabeth Olsen is. Isn't she white? Olsen sounds like a Norwegian-esque name. Let's see. Wait, she's related to Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. Those are her older sisters. Holy fuck. No wonder she looks familiar. They're the Olsen. Yeah, they're fucking. She's white. Yeah, they're Norwegian. I fucking knew it. So they have this Norwegian bitch like playing a Romani Jewish woman and making no effort to be Romani or Jewish in her story. Or even in like Moon Knight, like, yeah, it's Oscar Isaac who is Latino, but it's like a Jewish character, and even their approach of Judaism is really fucked up. Or even in Umbrella Academy, where there's like blatant anti-Semitism. I have opinions on that. I'm not a big Gerard Way fan. Just putting that out there. I don't care for MCR. I don't care for Gerard Way. Kind of hate Gerard Way's comics. Will not lie. But like, there's like this such a hegemony there of like, oh, like that is really leaning into fascism and into like a kind of like creating something that's very childlike, that reminds you of your childhood, but in a way that makes like, oh, this is the type of America you may want. And it's like, oh yeah, there's diversity and stuff, but it's still, diversity does not inherently mean liberalness, I would say. And like, yeah, I don't think Alan Moore was necessarily wrong on that. I don't agree with him on all things, but I think he had some truth that he was speaking into when he made that statement. Very controversial. Some of you may really disagree with me, and I respect that, and I honestly want to hear y'all's opinions on it. So yeah, disagree with me. Feel free. Next, after this music break, we're going to be talking about codings of characters. You'll have to guess which characters, but listen to this ditty.
Things that go bump in the night. Give me a tyrant. Let it all hang out, but you won't Have a good time. My pop and grind. Have a good time. Have a pop and grind. Have a good time. Ow.
Alright, y'all. Now to wrap it up, I want to talk about some queer and trans codings of characters in comics, specifically between the Gotham Rogues and the X-Men. I decided to give the Marvel people some representation here, so I'll give you X-Men. So, like I said, I kind of recorded this episode because I was thinking about Harvey Dent. And I hope that in future episodes we'll discuss, like, this in depth. But I feel like there is something to be said about, like, Batman. Especially Batman. Well, Batman as a whole. Because I personally am not a Bat-fam person with, like, Dick Grayson and whoever the fuck. I don't know the rest of the kids' names. They all kind of look the same. They're all the same to me. But there's, like, a found familyness there. And, like, I know, like, some of them are explicitly queer, so it's, like, found family in, like, a really positive way that, like, oh, like, acceptance and whatever. But, and there's, like, queer codings with the Batman and Robin type stuff, which is not necessarily great. But, you know what? It exists. I can't be like, oh, that's not a part of their story. No, it is a part of their history in American culture. Don't fucking support it, though. But, like, with Gotham Rogues, they're really interesting because, like, I was talking to Blair about this. Blair, if you're listening, love you. And she was saying, like, where, like, a lot of the time, especially mainly in Spider-Man, which I do not read, where, like, the villain is the one that's being stoic to, like, a snappy kid. It's like there's a stoic hero, and the snappiness from the villains is kind of, like, almost flirtatious in a way, like, because they're trying to almost, like, tempt him, whereas, like, in Spider-Man, like, it's just they've got this cocky kid, so it's much more of a cocky kid versus some random middle-aged man type vibe that isn't really queer at all. It doesn't have a queer reading. It's just kind of like, man, these fucking kids are all like, all the guys that are nerds. But in Batman, it's so many people have joked about how, like, all the villains just have a big heart on for Batman, and it's so true. They have, like, an obsession with him, and it's really almost sexual. Like, Joker is a really great example. Like, all of Joker's like, any Joker work has, like, a very either implicit or explicit vibe of him being really fucking gay for Batman. Like, Batman Telltales, fucking gay. I don't like the Joker, to be honest. Call me a hater. But even in, like, the newest Batman movie, like, the Riddler, like, how all of the actors and the producers have talked about it, like, it's supposed to almost be a love story between, like, the Riddler and Batman, which is fucking insane. And it's fucking great. I love that. The Riddler should be gay. Like, ideally, he's so camp. And that's also, like, part of it. Like, Batman villains are so camp that, like, they need to be queer. Like, they need to be fun like that. So yeah, I don't know. For me, I love the Gotham Rogues because I think they're all really queer. I feel like they're all really gender. They're all really trans and queer, but also, like, really mentally ill in, like, that disturbing way. Like, they're not like, oh, I'm just depressed. It's like, no, they're my fucked up mentally ill representation, and I need that. I need that as a very mentally ill person. I like that. But I think Harvey Dent, I don't know if Harvey Dent has trans vibes. I've been trying to decipher what my thoughts are on Harvey Dent. I just have many. They're not particular, but they're numerous. So yeah, I don't know. I'll get back to y'all about that, and hopefully I'll be able to suss out more stuff with Harvey Dent in the future. And then with like X Men, it's all about like mutation and like what have you, but like it's always been like it's always been like an allegory towards civil rights and in that like queer liberation, but also like the whole concept of assimilation versus um like individuality, I guess. And it's like Magneto would be such a queer icon, specifically trans. Like if you read his work as like, oh, this like if you view him as queer but only in a cis way, like that's fine. Like I've read Cherrick fanfics where it's like, oh, he's like kind of supposed to be a gay activist, but it's more about gayness. No, he's the type of that needs to be like so violently transsexual in like a um like just cis exclusionary way, in a trans only sense, in a T for T sense. He's very this show almost. So I think Magneto's our fucking mascot, is what I'm saying. Don't be a Charles Xavier, be a Magneto. And that's kind of how I'm gonna end this episode. Sorry if I rambled a lot. Actually, I'm not sorry. I had a good time. I had a good time rambling. I was playing with pieces of paper. I was talking like a crazy person. So it's been a good episode. I'll keep you guys updated with the zine and stuff, and I'll keep you guys updated and hopefully like upload those videos to YouTube with the past 2 episodes. But thank you for listening to episode 3 of season 3 of T Boys Black. Next week we're probably discussing horror films. Hopefully we'll have a guest to discuss transness in horror films. Hopefully it'll be fun, or it might be me just talking about Hellraiser, the new Hellraiser movie. I might do a review on the Hellraiser movie. But anyways, fuck off, and thank you for listening.
Get up in the morning, slaving for bread, sir, so that every mouth can be fed. Oh, me Israelites,